Hey, how you doing? This is Adam Post. Fani Willis has been fired off her case, the one she was bringing against Trump in the big fancy RICO investigation. Why was she thrown off the case? Well, the appeals court just decided, the Georgia appeals court, that she's not competent to be on the case because of her inappropriate relationship with her boyfriend, who she brought onto the case to take on Trump and accuse him of election tampering. This was always a completely ridiculous case, but because of the position that Fani Willis had, and also apparently because there was cooperation in Washington, D.C., her boyfriend Nathan Wade, who was running the case before he got thrown off the case, has admitted that he went and visited Washington, D.C. and met with the White House literally a number of times to discuss this case. How this thing ever got this far, who knows? Now, Fani Willis is not fired from being a DA. She and her office, though, are pulled off of handling this nonsense, ridiculous case of hers. Two things can happen with it now. One, it can get reassigned to another person who wants to pursue this case, another DA, which is very unlikely. It will just drop because this is all just a scam that she was running with her boyfriend Nathan Wade, in my humble opinion. Or she can continue. She can appeal to the Georgia Supreme Court and say, hey, how could you throw me off of this case? I'm a strong young woman. I'm a tough guy. Keep me on this case. What did I do wrong? Everybody falls in love every now and then. Yes, everybody does fall in love every now and then, but she hid her relationship with her boyfriend, who was supposed to be in charge of this case, just to tank Trump. And of course, he did win the election anyway, but this was a really, really inappropriate malicious prosecution, if there ever was such a thing as malicious prosecution. Trump can pursue a case against Georgia for malicious prosecution when this case is completely done. If Trump does win a case against Georgia for malicious prosecution, nobody goes to jail. He just gets a financial settlement out of it. But at least then the history books are recorded that, yeah, this was an abuse of power, this was ridiculous, and then it would have been finished, and he would have been clearly the person in the right, not in the wrong. From the Washington Post, Fani Willis disqualified from Trump election case by Georgia Appellate Court. The decision, which Willis is likely to appeal to the Georgia Supreme Court, is a major victory for Trump and his co-defendants and could doom the high-profile prosecution. This supposed high-profile prosecution is in such early stages anyway. It wasn't anywhere near getting in the game of the case, really getting people in front of juries. They didn't select any kind of jury. And Trump still had other multiple defenses, immunity, things like that, that weren't even heard yet. If Fani Willis is a smart lady, what she will do is not appeal it to the Georgia Supreme Court. If she has too much pride, then yeah, she'll do that. But if she's smart, she'll just let the thing die on the vine and say, oh, well, we could have appealed, but he became president now, and it was in the best interest of the country. She could say things like that and still cover up a lot of what very likely could have been severe wrongdoing in this case. It probably also will, in one way or another, delay Trump being able to sue her for malicious prosecution and also keep her out of a little bit of trouble. But if she's got too much pride, and if she wants to show how tough she is, she might continue this. And if she continues it, she'll just keep losing. Coming to you out of Atlanta, a Georgia appellate court overturned a judge's ruling allowing Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis, though she does prefer to be referred to as Fani Willis, to remain in charge of the criminal racketeering case against Donald Trump and several allies charged with conspiring to overturn Trump's 2020 election laws in the state, a decision that could doom the high-profile prosecution. It's doomed. It was doomed before it began. It was a scam. She thought her and her boyfriend could play games and take, hundreds of thousands of dollars and trips. Now, this is, of course, just my opinion, but they did take the money and they did go on the trips. They thought they could do that. They could sink Trump winning the election, keep the case going a couple more years, make maybe a couple $1 million in fees from the state of Georgia, and then win or lose, she still would have been the person who got to derail Trump, which would have been good for her political career. As amazing as it may seem, unless she gets herself into even more trouble, her political career is probably going to do just fine. She'll stay a DA. She's not going to make it as a governor or anything, but she'll still be able to keep on doing things like this. In a 31-page written opinion published Thursday, the Georgia Court of Appeals sided with Trump and 8 co-defendants who sought to overturn a March order by Fulton County Superior Judge Scott McAfee that rejected a motion to disqualify Willis and her office after she was accused of having an inappropriate relationship with an outside attorney she'd hired to lead the election interference case. How quickly they forget the name Nathan Wade. And she did do that, and it was inappropriate. Not because he wasn't interested in doing it. It's not like he said no and she pushed him to play games anyway. She didn't abuse her power over him. You're just not supposed to be the DA and fooling around with the head prosecutor in a case. And you're supposed to also not keep it secret. But she got caught. Quote, after carefully considering the trial court's findings in the order, we conclude that it erred in failing to disqualify DA Willis and her office. Erred means errored. Judges Trenton Brown, Todd Markle, and Benjamin Land, the 3-judge panel appointed to review the case, said McAfee's remedy did nothing to address the appearance of impropriety that existed at times when DA Willis was exercising her broad pretrial discretion about who to prosecute and what charges to bring. McAfee knew this. I knew this. You likely knew this. I don't know who you are, but come on, common sense. This was absurdly inappropriate that you've got all of this power and all of this discretion to make decisions about charging this person, charging that person. The prosecutor has decisions to make. Nathan Wade had qualitative decisions he was supposed to make based on his vast experience and lack of conflicts of interest in the interest of justice. The judge caught them. He put on the trial evaluating and seeing what the heck was going on between these two that they said was or wasn't going on and when did it happen. The judge knew. But he had his own election coming up. She had an election coming up. Trump had an election coming up. So he wasn't going to get involved in the middle of all of that. Much easier for him to say, I'll tell you what, let's get rid of Nathan Wade. Let's leave Fani Willis and her office on the case. If you do that, it's okay. He pushed it off to the appellate court above him. And then when Trump and the other defendants said, you know what, we're going to appeal this, Judge McAfee did approve having the appellate court look at the issue before the case was over, which normally it is after a case is over that you can appeal to a higher court, at least where they are in Georgia. But the reason that McAfee approved it was he knew this is his reputation too. 2 years, 3 years, 4, 5 years down the line, when this case got done and then got appealed and thrown out, it would have been a waste of everyone's time, everyone's lives, and he would be forever associated with this failure. The judges continued, quote, while we recognize that an appearance of impropriety generally is not enough to support disqualification, this is the rare case in which disqualification is mandated and no other remedy will suffice to restore public confidence in the integrity of these proceedings, according to their order. The appellate decision, which Willis is likely to appeal in the Georgia Supreme Court, if she really can't control herself, she will appeal it. If she's smart, she'll let it die on the vine and she won't get herself tied up in what's going to be very bad for her if she does this, because it's embarrassing every time she has a major loss. And every time she has a loss, for example, like when her boyfriend Nathan Wade got kicked off the case, it's tremendously embarrassing and it gives Trump a win. This is now a bigger loss. She's been kicked off her own high-profile case, her and her entire office for inappropriate behavior. That's more embarrassing than what happened with Nathan Wade. If she keeps going on like this, she's going to be completely humiliated. This is a major victory for Trump and his co-defendants who have repeatedly sought to derail the case. They're challenging the constitutionality of the case, the appropriateness of the case. That's what the defense is supposed to do. If this decision is not overturned, a state agency that advises Georgia prosecutors would be tasked with finding a prosecutor unaffiliated with Fulton County, because that's how corrupt Fulton County now has been called out as being by the appellate court, to take on the case. A move that many believe would ultimately lead to the case being dismissed. Because the case is a mess, it was a political game, in my opinion, started by Fani Willis and her boyfriend as a scam. So who's going to want to be part of that? A spokesperson for Willis did not immediately respond to a request for comment. She should have had a comment ready. She knew this was coming. The appellate decision comes 2 weeks after Trump asked the appellate court to have the Georgia charges against him thrown out as he prepares to return to the White House after his November election victory. Steve Sadow, Trump's lead attorney in Georgia, previously argued that if Trump regained the presidency, the case against his client would have to be delayed until at least 2029, quote, under the Supremacy Clause and its duty to the President of the United States. This trial would not take place at all until after he left his term of office, according to Sadow. And he's right. He's not going to be appearing in court for a scam, ridiculous trial run by Fani Willis or anyone else. Fani Willis has strongly implied in the past that she'll continue to pursue her office's case against Trump unless a court blocks her, an unprecedented legal challenge that could play out even as Trump assumes the presidency. It doesn't look like it's going to get that far. If it does, it's going to be a laughingstock. And anyone who wants to see something interesting, keep an eye on that. Thursday's court order comes 9 months after McAfee, the presiding judge on the case, ruled the now president-elect and his co-defendants had, quote, failed to meet their burden of proving Willis's relationship with special prosecutor Nathan Wade and allegations that she was financially enriched by trips the two took together were enough of a conflict of interest to disqualify her and her office from the case. But McAfee's order also noted, quote, significant appearance of impropriety, prompting the judge to declare that either Willis and her office or Wade had to leave the case. Wade quickly resigned. And that was the trap door that the judge built into the case. You can't have an appearance of impropriety in a multi-defendant RICO case where you're accusing him of trying to overturn an election and have it so obvious that the person is biased and unhinged who's the district attorney. You can't do that. And McAfee knew that, but he wasn't going to have that political stuff go on him, which he should have. He should have stood up and done the right thing. He didn't do the right thing. Ultimately, we all pay the price when we don't do the right thing when we're in a position of power. He will be embarrassed over this, but not as severely as Fani Willis. In appealing the order, attorneys for Trump and 8 co-defendants argued Wade's departure was not enough to resolve the appearance of impropriety that has cast a pall over the entire proceedings. It called McAfee's decision to keep Willis on the case an erroneous failure and a structural error that would not just cause substantial error at trial, but could also later cause a verdict to be overturned. Trump's attorneys also accused Willis, who is black, of displaying racial animus towards Trump and suggested that alone could be grounds for removal and charges dismissed because it jeopardized his right to a fair trial. Because she made a speech at a church questioning why Nathan Wade was being accused of being involved with her inappropriately and said that it must be because he was black or she was black, and then accused the defendants of being inappropriate and implied racial things that were completely absurd and inappropriate. Fulton County prosecutors had pushed the appellate court to dismiss the appeal outright, arguing McAfee granted Trump and his co-defendants, quote, substantial leeway in presenting evidence that Willis and her relationship with Wade had compromised the case. Quote, as both this court and the Supreme Court have repeatedly held, Georgia appellate courts will not disturb a trial court's factual findings on disputed issues outside of certain, very rare circumstances. According to Donald Wakeford, an assistant district attorney and prosecutor on the election case, who argued this in a June filing. But when a trial court makes determinations concerning matters of credibility or evidentiary weight, reviewing courts will not disturb those determinations unless they are flatly incorrect. Meaning that all the pressure that got put on Judge McAfee should have been enough to cover up all of the incredible nuttiness going on in her relationship with Nathan Wade, the prosecutor. Well, it wasn't enough because Trump is way too high profile now for them to pull this on him. He's going to be the president January 20th again. You can't keep doing this stuff. And the appellate court judges weren't going to sign their names to continuing Fani Willis's crazy political quest to abuse her power on the basis of attacking Trump. The 3-judge panel selected to hear the case, made up of Brown, Markle, and Land, had originally scheduled oral arguments on the appeal for December 5th, a month after the election. But they abruptly canceled those arguments on November 19th with no explanation after Trump had won the election, surprising attorneys on both sides. That was the point that Fani Willis should have started to get her response ready for the Washington Post, because she should have known back then, and I'm sure she did, that yeah, her goose is cooked. She's off the case. Ultimately, the three-judge panel rendered its decision to disqualify Willis based on filings and the trial record on Thursday, 3 months before their March 2025 deadline. Because there's no reason for this nonsense to continue multiple months into Donald Trump's presidency. Let him just run the country. If you have any issue with him running the country, you can take action, you can make statements, you can resist or whatever you want to do, but you can't play these games with the judicial system. But get ready, when there's a new DOJ and it's under Trump's new attorney general, they may want to look into some of these lawfare political cases that were brought in Georgia and Washington, D.C. and New York. In fact, it's kind of a must. They need to clear the decks and explain to the people what actually happened here and take it all the way back to January 6th. Let me know what you think of all this in the comments below. Always love to see your ideas. Please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications. Give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you again soon with another story. And if I don't see you, I will miss you.